Sadiq Khan has found his latest excuse for fighting against the UK's departure from the EU. Women. And just look at all the support he's getting on Twitter. Oh, that ratio. In an open letter to Glamour magazine, our person of colour knight in shining armour, has declared that Brexit could result in women losing important rights. And Sadiq is here to tell us what impact Brexit might have on women across the country. Well, we're only the title in, and we're already relying heavily on weasel words such as could or might. Good to know Sadiq's brought some hard facts with him to the table. Here in City Hall, we launched a campaign to celebrate the achievements and contributions of women from all walks of life, who make cities like London so great, and to shine a spotlight on what we need to do to reach gender equality. Well, that sounds like an utter waste of taxpayer money. With cuts to the NHS and policing, knife crime and acid attacks on the rise, I'm really glad to hear that the Mayor of London is busying himself with the important issues like applauding women for having vaginas. Sadiq continues, "As Mayor, I'm determined to do everything possible to keep up this progress because, depressingly, for the first time in my lifetime, I fear that we are faced with the possibility of women's rights stagnating, or even worse, going backwards." Oh, you mean like good-looking women being banned from appearing in advertisements, Sadiq? Or being forced to use the back door and sit separate from the men while listening to a speech by a candidate for mayor, perhaps, Sadiq? No, of course not. He, of course, as usual, is whining about Brexit. He goes on to say, "One of my biggest concerns is Brexit. There's no doubt that a hard Brexit, or worse still, a no-deal Brexit, would disproportionately impact women." No doubt, huh? I'm afraid to tell you, Mr. Khan, I very much doubt. According to the Equality and Human Rights Commission, Brexit could result in women losing important rights and protections, including maternity leave, other employment rights, and funding for women's services. These hard-won rights are not in the Prime Minister's withdrawal agreement, and we would be at the whim of future governments. Well, for starters, you Wally, in case you're unaware, a no-deal Brexit wouldn't involve Theresa May's withdrawal agreement, so I have no idea why you're bothering to quote that. Second, these rights are currently at the whim of some unelected European government, you know, the kind we can't vote out for messing with our hard-earned rights. And any UK politician stupid enough to start trying to take away our maternity leave very likely would not remain a UK politician for very long, because in our own government, unlike the EU, if they pass some ridiculous law, the public can vote them out in the next elections. He continues, Brexit could also mean we miss out on future benefits agreed by the European Union. For example, the EU is looking to extend paid parental leave and is putting the pressure on national governments to ratify the Istanbul Convention, which is comprehensive legislation to protect women and girls from violence. Because of course, without the EU holding our hand and telling us what is right and wrong, there is no way that our government would be able to comprehend that new parents need to spend time with their newborn children or that violence is bad. And on the off chance that the EU actually thinks up a law that is worth having, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever that our government could not consider proposing similar laws if it is something that the voters actually want without having to have it thrust upon us. He carries on. Worryingly, at the time of writing, it remains a very real possibility that the UK could crash out of the EU with no deal at all. Well, Mr. Khan, perhaps if our elected officials, of which you are supposed to be one, had spent the last 2 years doing what the public asked them to do and come up with better options for our departure, rather than spending them trying to overturn and sabotage Brexit at every opportunity by whining for another vote, trying to find loopholes to not carry out the will of the people, or doing exactly what you are doing right now and fear-mongering with made-up nonsense, we might actually have a better option on the table than no deal. However, because of the complete incompetence of our elected officials, combined with the uncooperativeness of the EU, as it stands, our best deal is now no deal. He continues, every assessment of the economic impact this would have predicts that our economy would massively suffer. And, just like the impact of the government's austerity program since 2010, it's women, particularly ethnic minority women, who would suffer the most. This would not only hit jobs, but would result in less investments in our schools, in early years care, in the NHS, and in social care. It could also risk access to crucial medicines. Yes, I can see this by all the sources you forgot to cite for this. And even if any of this was from sources other than some Guardian opinion piece, you have still failed to make the point as to just how these things would affect minority women more than any other person in the UK. Sounds to me like you just said what you thought would get you the most virtue points, and screw actually backing any of it up. His letter continues. Too often, key voices and key sectors in our economy have just been ignored throughout the Brexit process. What we needed after the referendum was a genuine national conversation about the type of Brexit the nation actually wanted, and the safeguards we needed in place before we left. As a part of this, young people, women's groups, and thriving creative industries, and many others should have been right at the centre of this conversation. Really, just like you're currently ignoring the voices of every woman in the UK who voted for Leave. If you truly wanted a conversation about what kind of Brexit Leave voters actually wanted, you would have spent the last 2 years asking them, rather than stamping your feet and trying to find any way you could to overturn their vote. It continues, given the dangerous road that we have been forced down, I have called for Article 50 to be revoked and a public vote to give the British people the final say on how we proceed. 2 years ago, this was not something I ever thought we'd need. But disproportionate impact Brexit could have on women means that giving people a fresh say is now the only right and fair approach left for our city and country. So basically, you want to use women, like myself, as an excuse to ignore what people already told you they wanted, treat 17.4 million people, including many women, like they voted wrong, and make us tell you again and again until we vote the way that you want us to. You, sir, are not fit to be in a position of leadership in a democratic country. He finishes his ridiculous letter with this. When I first became mayor, I said my ultimate ambition was to ensure that every Londoner would be able to share in our city's prosperity and access the same opportunities to succeed that London gave me and my family. 2.5 years on, I'm just as passionate about this goal. And I know that continuing to fight for women's rights and full gender equality will be part of this effort. Sorry, Sadiq, but if spitting in the face of every woman who voted Leave on Brexit and informing her she was wrong to do so is your way of fighting for my rights, please don't. Mr. Khan has been trying every possible angle to try and overturn Brexit and push for another referendum until people vote the way he wants. Caring about women is just his latest spin on it. While I don't recommend contacting Sadiq, I do highly recommend a read of Twitter's reaction to his stupidity.